Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode. Thank you guys for sticking with us. Today, or this time of the month, is our favorite time of the month over here, and that is October, spooky season.
Would actually be our favorite time of the year, not our favorite time of the month.
Oh, yeah, favorite time of the year. Our favorite time of the month.
Yes, it is my much anticipated October. October is literally one of my favorite times of the year. Where I'm at, it starts to get a little bit cooler. Nights get a little bit darker. And, it's football time. It's scary, spooky time. It's just kind of that time of year that, you start to wear, again, where I'm at, we're already putting our sweaters on or our vests and kind of going at it. And it's great. It's great. Not like you. It's not hot like you guys.
I'm in a desert where we're in the 70s and 80s still. But this, when this month rolls around, spooky season, it's created some of the best movies, or maybe the best genre in cinema is horror films.
Yes, absolutely. And it's kind of funny is I always sit and think about it's so kind of up to one person's adaptation of what they like. Some people like, it's kind of odd as I meet some people and they don't like horror movies at all. And I'm like, oh, really? And it just kind of blows my mind because to me, it probably is my favorite genre of movies, that and probably adventure movies. And it just made me start to think. And I was like, there's so many different genres and there's so many different movies. I came up with a spin wheel, Brunner.
A spin
wheel. And I thought we could spin the wheel and then kind of maybe talk about one or two of our favorite movies from each genre that comes up as a topic. And the first one we'd come up with would be...
Oh, the wheel is spinning?
The wheel is spinning. Ooh. Witches. So, what's your favorite movie to do with witches? Do you have a favorite? Do you have something?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Yes, I do.
What is it?
I'm glad. You could go with the old reliable and saying The Crucible, but no, mine's more recent. It's from the film. I'm sorry, it's from A24. It's directed by Robert Edgar. It's called The Witch. Have you seen Italy?
I have seen some of it. I haven't seen the whole movie. I've seen trailers of it, and it's on my list to watch this year. But I've heard great things. I think you actually told me about it last year, and I just didn't get to it in October because there were so many movies.
Yeah. This movie stars, not stars, but it was the breakout role for actress Anya Taylor-Joy, phenomenal actress. And what I loved about this movie is it's set in the time period of the Jamestown time period, where it's like where everybody has started coming in, And another great thing too about that movie is it makes you feel like you're in that time period because the dialogue is like on par with how people talked back then.
Oh, very
and
cool.
Then so it's not just like how we're talking right now. They're actually saying things, and there's like an underlying tone of like, oh, it's not just about witches and Satan. No, it's like it's more symbolic than that. And
so they're talking like Old English, you're saying?
Yeah, it's very Old English. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. That is kind of cool.
Yeah, and then and then she brings up because they're like, they bring up, they're like, because they get banished from like the town they're in, so they go and live on their own land, and then like they're struggling, the crops are struggling, and she's like, I wish we would have stayed back in England, than coming over here. So it's like, and then yeah, very good movie, highly recommended.
So. My favorite witch movie is actually, I have a couple of them, is the first one I kind of was thinking of, and then it's like it's not really a witch movie, but it's kind of like a coven. Is The Wicker Man, and I don't know if you've ever seen The Wicker Man, but it's a 1973 movie, and basically this guy goes to an island. They're getting ready to have this big festival, and it's all built up around this like big statue of a man, and they kind of have a big bonfire, but then what this man finds out is it's a human sacrifice, and he's the man put inside the Wicker Man, and he's burned. And it was a really, really, really good movie. They ended up remaking it in I want to say the 2000s with Nicolas Cage. Wouldn't recommend that one, but the original Wicker Man was amazing. Great, great, great cast. Little bit 1970s-ish in the filming of it, but it was good. But then the other one I always kind of think of when I think of witch is probably the greatest movie ever made on an incredibly cheap budget, The Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
So, The Blair Witch Project, have you ever seen it, Brunner?
Yes, I have.
And that movie, I don't get scared. And it's kind of like a standing joke with me and Brunner and Anthony. They're always like, "You scared, Elite?" And I'm like, "No, I don't really get scared." And so I left the movie theater after watching that, and literally had to walk through a shortcut. I was with a couple friends of mine, and we had to walk through a shortcut through the woods to get to the other side where we were going through. And the whole time I was like, yeah, that movie played tricks on me. And it was a really, really, really good movie and had you kind of in suspense the whole way. And I thought that would really be a kind of highly recommended if you've never seen it. I don't want to give away the ending. I don't want to give away too much of these spoilers because I think I'd love people to go out and see them if they haven't. But I think that that's definitely highly recommended.
Yeah, shout out to that movie because it was a low budget movie from the beginning, and a lot of people thought, was it real? Because these were a bunch of like nobodies, so it's not like these are big name people. Like, oh, he's doing this thing now. It's like that, they just disappear, into the woodwork.
I think they literally that's the only movie these people have ever made. And I think they created a whole genre of low budget, almost homemade movies because the people that did Paranormal Activity, that's where they got their influence was the Blair Witch Project. And it was pretty cool. I thought it was a really good movie. Let's see what our next spin will be. Spinning will be... We're going to talk about foreign films, foreign horror movies. Do you have anything in mind?
Not off the top of my head. It's been a minute since I've seen a foreign horror film. Do you have anything off the top of your head that I can think of?
I absolutely do. So probably, arguably, one of the greatest horror movies I think ever made is called The Girl Who Walks Alone. Okay, it's an Iraqi movie. I think it's Iraqi or Iranian, and it is subtitled, but it is probably, arguably, one of the greatest movies ever made. And I don't want to give away too big of a spoiler, but it's basically falls into the vampiric genre, and it's about a girl who basically wears like a full hijab, and people see her walking alone at night, and then that's basically the story. I don't want to give away again too many spoilers. Highly, that movie is probably 9.5 out of 10 stars. It's almost perfect.
Yeah. I just thought of one. Totally forgot about it. I recommend this to you. I think you saw it. The Babadook.
Yes. Great movie. Great movie. English.
Yeah.
It was a great movie. It was highly recommended movie. I think it was on Netflix. I think it still might
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
That was a really, really, really interesting movie. It was kind of like one of the ones of like you told me to watch it. I think last Halloween I watched it, and I think I remember saying to you that was probably one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen. But it was a great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good one. Let's see what we got.
Yeah. I was just want to say, like, it has the underlying problem of like single mother and her son, and he already has these problems by himself, and now they have to deal with something a little bit more paranormal. Great movie.
Ooh. Next topic.
Psychological.
What would you say is probably the best psychological horror, scary suspense movie that you've ever seen?
I know I've seen it. I forget its name, but it was like sort of an indie film. Not really, but I just remember I'm trying to pull it up. But the biggest takeaway was that movie was shot on an iPhone, and it wasn't like some like home backyard movie. It was an actual big movie, and it looked really good. I'm looking up.
I don't know that one.
Unsane. It was called Unsane.
Unseen. Okay.
Unsane. UNSANE.
Okay. Unsane.
And it was a long time I've seen it, but it was about a girl who like she's breaking up with her boyfriend, who's like, here, let me read the plot. But I remember, right here it says Sawyer Valentini is a troubled woman who moves away from her home in Boston to escape a stalker. Upon moving, she gets upwardly mobile, high-powered dream job at a bank. Sawyer finds she is triggered by interactions with men as a result of her stalking trauma. Yes, I remember that. It's like every time she always thought like she ran into like a man, she always thought it was her stalker, and then the whole movie was like shot on an iPhone. Like literally, director just went like this. I'm showing my phone screen. Went like this, and then shot the whole movie, and it was a really good movie. And it's not like really good camera quality. So it was
wow. Really so I think the best psychological. I really have two. I really honestly have two, and I can't really pick one over the other. I've been sitting here the whole time you talking, thinking, "Oh wow, what would I pick?" And the first one I would have to say goes without saying, absolutely 110% Psycho. Alfred Hitchcock Psycho is probably, arguably, one of the greatest psychological. There wasn't like a lot of gore in the movie. There was that one scene, but it really, the whole build up. And to this day, when I reach in, I open any cellar door and I reach in and flick that light and walk down those first 3 steps, I always think of the last minute and a half of that movie.
Yeah, or anytime, like if you're ever driving and you see a motel and you're like, that dude, something's up, like a Norman Bates type vibe.
Yeah, and it's so it's funny is it stuck with me years, and I probably saw that the first time when I was 11, 12 maybe, and I've probably seen it 4 or 5 times in my lifetime. I don't think the Vince Vaughn version did as good as the originally Alfred Hitchcock version, but it was so phenomenal, and just there's so many scenes in that movie that I could be like, oh yeah, that's one. Oh yeah, that was awesome. And then the other one, of course, has to be arguably the greatest psychological movie ever made, The Silence of the Lambs. Introduction of Hannibal Lecter and just the whole genre of that serial killer / just the buildup of that movie. Like I just remember distinctively the end when Clarice gets to the house and she's down in the cellar, and then the guy like turns on turns on all the lights, and he has the night vision goggles on, and she's like doing this, like feeling around and trying to find a wall or a light switch. Oh my God, that movie was great, and it made you think the whole time. Oh boy, another one like that too. Seven.
So
If you've
never seen.
if you've never seen Seven, I highly suggest you go and watch Seven. I cannot say anything about it other than the fact that three amazing actors in it. Amazing actors in it. Morgan Freeman, Brad Pitt, Kevin Spacey. And you have to leave it at that. You can't really talk about it because if you know anything going into it, it kind of ruins the whole thing. Literally one of the greatest movies I've ever seen in my life. I remember seeing it. I think it was nominated for an Academy Award, but it was a phenomenal movie.
Yeah, and I thought of another one. I kind of want to take back, or not take back, but because Unseen was pretty good, but Get Out.
Oh yeah, that was
totally forgot about it.
And that was so interesting, and it was like a really great, different like look on things. Like it was just different. Like that one had you think too. I like movies that when I see a psychological thriller, horror movie, whatever you want to call them, I like ones that I think about and like 4 or 5 days later are still with me, and I'm still thinking about it. You know, and I was that way with Get Out. Like Get Out, I think changed the whole genre. I think it was really great to have a black filmmaker's point of view of now making a black, for years upon years, it was kind of like the standard joke is basically the black person in a horror movie was like the person wearing the red shirt on Star Trek. They're always the first to go. And it was really great to have a different point of view with that as opposed to your stereotypical,
Yeah, and then especially in this time where it's just constant horror remakes of classic films. This is something that's actually original that came out. And
then he made Us, which I didn't think was as good. And then didn't he just remake a classic horror movie?
He didn't. I think he produced it. He had some involvement with Candyman.
Yeah,
but it was a female director, I think.
Okay,
like he helped, get it along. Like,
so maybe he was just a backer. Maybe he just kind of
his foot was in. I mean, he put his toes in the water, but didn't stir. I don't know what I'm saying, but he didn't.
Yeah, I hear you. I get you. It just, but I wasn't as impressed with Us as I was Get Out. Get Out, I thought was definitely generational changing. It was good. It was good. Us was good. It just wasn't as good as Get Out.
Oh.
Next topic. Spin.
I think you spelled werewolf wrong.
Yeah, I think I did. That's okay. Classic horror movies. Oh my gosh. Yeah, let's define classic.
So is this creature feature?
No, this is more like 1920s to 1940s horror movies. Like you'd kind of sit and say, for me, my classic go-to horror movie, whenever it's on, I'm going to definitely stop and watch any one of the Universal monsters. The Werewolf, I think, is a great movie. Yeah, I think that Dracula is a great movie. I think that Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein. I think that both Frankenstein movies were phenomenal. The director of that was just amazing. And so I think it's kind of hard. It's kind of funny. I don't know if it's really it's not a horror movie, but it was kind of a comedic horror movie. Is one of my favorites is Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. And it had all of the Universal monsters in it. It had Frankenstein, Dracula, and the werewolf, played by Lon Chaney Jr. in it, and I thought that was pretty cool. But so it's kind of a classic horror movies is kind of a weird genre because I have to say that I'm really thinking back to like the originals. Nosferatu, another great one. If you're into silent films, the ending scene where the sun comes up and Nosferatu basically falls away. Great movie. The original Phantom of the Opera. Oh my God! When you saw Lon Chaney Sr. at the reveal, I mean, it's iconic. It's iconic. So What's your thoughts, Brune?
If we're doing Universal monsters, my favorite was Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah, underrated, I would have to say. And great movie, underrated. One of the first real movies, they did a lot of underwater filming, and it was great. That is a great movie. I might have to go back and watch that this year. It's been a minute since I've seen it. That is, yeah, that's I always kind of think he's the original Swamp Thing. He's the original kind of guy. Like when you think about his character, he's kind of like the original Swamp Thing.
Did you ever see the original Invisible Man?
I did. I saw. So I assume by original you mean the Universal version.
Yeah.
With the because I think there was a silent version before that Universal version. But yeah, I've seen that.
I'm talking about the one where he takes off the bandages.
Yeah, and he starts laughing at everybody and running around the room. Yeah. So Claude Rains played that man. Great actor from that time period. And so I used to have this really cool thing as a young kid in Pennsylvania when I lived outside of Pittsburgh. We used to have this guy, and he used to call it Chilly Willy Theater. And so with Chilly Willy, he was one of the first people on Saturday nights to do basically like a creature double feature, whatever you call them. And he used to do horror movies. And then he would do like these little skits, like he looked dressed up in like a funeral director type thing, in a tuxedo. And he had like this little skull that used to laugh, and he would bring on like people who look like Elvira and stuff, and blah blah blah. And that's where I saw a lot of those movies. You'd stay up until like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and they would play all these old like 1940s and 50s horror movies. And it's the first place I saw Night of the Living Dead. First place I saw The Invisible Man. First place I saw The Werewolf. And I just think there's something to be said about watching those old movies. Like, I don't think that younger people today appreciate them because they're just kind of desensitized. But I think that, like, getting a bowl of popcorn and sitting there with all the lights out in your room and watching them, they're still really, really well worth the watch. And they still definitely have a place, especially this time of year. To me, is I think that they'll always be. Like, I remember when my son first started watching horror movies, I said, oh, here's where we should start. Because I think you should almost start there and understand, like, the makeup and the shadowing and the lighting to where we are today. Because today it's like so much CGI, and yeah, it's a lot more gore and it's a lot more to it, but you have to appreciate where these guys came from, if that makes any sense.
And I bring that up because they remade The Invisible Man with the
I never watched
what's it called? Handmaid's Tale. And
okay.
I saw it. Everybody liked it. Was not a big fan of it.
I heard it was good though. I heard it was okay. Yeah, I didn't watch it.
It was okay. I mean, but like, it's just that Universal has been trying to make money from their from their horror stuff, because that's their assets. That's what they own forever.
Right.
Because Disney has like comic books, and like besides Fast and Furious, Universal has creature features, and they've been trying to remake, these. And like they did I, Frankenstein, which bombed, and then they made a Dracula one, which bombed, and then this is the only one the Invisible Man that has kind of done. But the Mummy, the Brendan Fraser series, was the only one
that made money.
The biggest hit, which was actually good because it was a different take on it than the classic.
And I think it's funny is there was a point in time when Universal was known as the masters of horror. Like, I mean, you sit there and you say, you're rattling off, of course they did the classic Universal monsters, but they also did Jaws. They also did Halloween. They also, I believe, Paramount, I think, was Friday the 13th. But, I mean, there was a period where they were kind of definitely putting out a lot of horror movies, and that was kind of their jam. That was kind of what they did. And I think what's happened is we've had the shifting of horror movies is a lot of independent stuff, and then they go out and get, for lack of a better word, I don't know what they call it in films, but they call it in music world. It's called publishing, and they go out and find publishers that will actually publish their music. In films, I think you go to it distributing. I think they distribute it. They're looking for distributors at that point. So I don't really know where they all went. I also have a funny feeling, in my opinion, and we kind of plan on talking about this in a future date when Anthony's here. Just so you know, Anthony today is at a quinceañera. So he quince boys at the quinceañera. Yeah. But I think what's happened is I think Hollywood's gotten lazy. And I think Hollywood now is just kind of looking through what they did. I literally saw something the other day. Since we're speaking about horror movies, I'm going to tell you one person right now, if he ever makes a horror movie, I will not watch it. I think he makes crap. And that's Rob Zombie. I've never seen a Rob Zombie movie that I've liked.
I would say one of the best Hollywood makeup gore artists, that Rob Zombie, who became later a director.
He originally started out, as a musician, right? He's the lead singer of White Zombie. But yeah, that guy, I think he sucks. And everything he's tried to do, he's tried to redo Halloween. He's tried to redo, and then he had his own little genre. And what it really comes down to is not necessarily his vision on things and not necessarily his directing. It's his casting. He always wants to put his friends in it, mainly his wife, who I think is one of the worst actresses I've ever seen in my lifetime. Okay, her name's Sherry Moon, and she's a horrible actress. And all his movies just seem to come out feeling almost 1970s, 1960s campy as opposed to horror movies. Speaking of them redoing things, I just found out he's redoing The Addams Family. Okay? Now, Addams Family originally as the TV show in the 60s was amazing. Then, when they redid it in the 1980s with Christina Ricci, I thought it was really good. And now they're redoing it. And he's going to have his wife play Morticia. And I'm like, it just doesn't seem to fit. You had Angelica Houston. You had the woman who played I forget her last name, Caroline, who played in the 1960s. I'm like, she doesn't even look the part. She looks like trashy crack whore. And it's just like, she's great for trashy crack whore roles. And I just can't. She has that whiny voice. I don't know. It's interesting. I just think that's where Hollywood's at. That's my 2-cent rant.
Yeah. Because you bring that up, I heard Bruce Campbell, who plays Ash Williams from the Evil Dead franchise. Shout out to the Evil Dead franchise, one of the best.
Shout out to the Evil Dead
indie horror movies.
First two were great. Third one, a little bit suspect.
Yeah. I'll get into that. He said, well, first of all, I've heard many times studios are just so terrible, and that they just want to make money at this point.
Yeah,
because everything's getting expensive, so they just want to make money. So so they do remakes because people are familiar with it. And then there was this Sam Raimi movie. I forget what it was called, but Bruce Campbell said he went to the studio had screenings for it. So, they screened it for the people, and they write on a piece of paper what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it. And then, and then they talk about it after. And then there was a scene where the man, it was a dude, he's supposed to be an evil guy, right? And then there was a scene where he's laughing maniacally and he's rolling around in money because the lead part is a female who is like, that's like, oh, like you can't get, you can't date this guy because this guy's secretly evil, right? And then so, and so like when the time came, and what they wrote is they hated that part where that scene basically helps show that this guy is evil,
Right.
And then so everybody hated that scene, and then and they Bruce Campbell, he was talking to the executive saying like, hey, like I liked how you approved Sam to shoot it, you guys allowed it, right? And so like a week or two later goes by, and he says, hey Bruce, do you want a copy of that scene, because we're going to axe it, we're going to cut it, because audiences didn't like it, even though it was part of this director vision to like show
I
how
think
evil
that's why
this
we're
guy
getting
is.
these great like cuts afterwards, and it's almost like wait for the director's cut to see how the movie really was supposed to be.
Another thing too is I saw Seth Rogen talk about is that because he was talking to some visual effects artists, and he says that he wants to use miniatures a lot, right? Because he likes the idea of miniatures and practical stuff, right? And
Yeah.
he said that he's like, that's a battle I have won. I mean, not have won. I have lost countless times because they don't like it. The studios don't like it.
Them and they just don't let you.
Really?
Yeah, it's an argument I've lost on many, many, many occasions.
Is the argument that like, oh,
it's just too expensive. Yeah,
Okay.
it's just too hard. It's too expensive. You need a whole unit.
I mean, it's expensive. You have to get a whole unit.
I just feel like they don't take risks anymore. They just
Yeah.
want the guarantees as opposed to. So we're not getting the movies that would really. I don't know. I don't know. It is what it is.
And he's like, well, Christopher Nolan and Tarantino, get to use miniatures. They're like, oh, that because they're Christopher Nolan and Quentin Tarantino, but you can't do that.
Yeah, I kind of see that in a way. Seth Rogen's okay. Some of these
but I
movies
mean,
are
like,
okay, but
if that's part of their vision, like if they're like,
I mean, I guess.
But
What's funny though is you think about like a Seth Rogen. Okay, I just watched it the other day. This is the end.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because you and Anthony forever used to quote things out of that, and I'm like, okay. So I watched it again because the first time I was like, okay, this just isn't my thing, and so I watched it again, walked away with it saying, it still probably isn't my thing. It was funny. There were some funny scenes in it, but it was just also kind of like, I don't know. It seemed to me like a venture of somebody smoking too much pot and just kind of sitting down and writing. It was kind of all over the place. But Seth Rogen's movies make money because a lot of kids and a lot of young adults go see them because that's what they want to see. You know what I'm saying? So maybe he should have a little bit of leeway because he's gonna make you money.
Yeah.
All he has to do is get out there and laugh his funny laugh and smoke some weed, and it's gonna be funny. You know what I'm saying? So
I mean, but just like other directors who are a little more serious in general, I feel like just like if they say, "Hey, can we do miniatures?" No, too expensive. You know what I mean? I just feel
maybe.
Like,
and to be honest with you, Quentin Tarantino just tells him to kiss his ass and he'll just go do it himself. And so Christopher Nolan, I don't know if he's at that point yet, but Quentin Tarantino is a multi-nominated best director, best screenplay guy. And to me, as Quentin Tarantino, I would love to see, you're too young to remember, Brunner, but there was a year when the year of Pulp Fiction, whatever year Pulp Fiction was nominated for the Academy Award, was probably the greatest year in the Academy's history, because I think it was the first year they actually said, hey, screw it, we're going to do this the right way. And you know how they nominate like 5 movies every year for Best Movie? 4 of them that year were independent movies. And out of those, we got some great directors from there. I think that at that time period, and I think that's kind of what I think is out there. The other thing is I wonder, too, is if writers just don't write anymore like they did. So a lot of times, like Quentin Tarantino, for example, he's one of my favorite directors. But if you ever notice Quentin Tarantino, most of his movies he done, he also was the screenwriter on that movie. So, but what I don't know if you know this or not, but Quentin Tarantino was a screenwriter before he was a director. Before he broke in, he was a screenwriter on True Romance and a couple other fairly bigger name movies. And they tried to get him to sell the rights to Pulp Fiction, and he finally said, "No, I'm not doing it. I either direct it or it doesn't get done." And that was after he already did Reservoir Dogs, which was a pretty big independent movie. I don't think it really cracked the mainstream until after Pulp Fiction, and people went back to see what he did prior. But it's interesting to me because I kind of look at it. I think we need to shake up Hollywood in general, and I think what it needs is, and I think it's already kind of happening, is I think the best thing for the movie industry is direct streaming. And what I mean by that is now your guy running around with an iPhone or a $10,000 Red camera or whatever the hell they're using can make something, and they can go to Netflix and negotiate it out, and maybe it becomes a top movie on Netflix. Or they can go to Prime, or they can go to Paramount and do Peacock, or whatever the hey it is. It doesn't necessarily have to go mainstream through a movie theater. You know what I'm saying? And you're seeing that like this weekend, yesterday, I saw a much anticipated movie, ended up being a fucking dud. The Saints of Newark, which was a prequel to The Sopranos.
Okay, because Anthony was asking about, he's like, is Ellie going to like this?
And
so the answer is no.
The answer is no. Horrible. And casting was great in it. I mean, there's a lot of things that were great about it, but the story was just all over the place. And I wonder if that's because they had to film it in two parts, like pre-COVID, and that it was just they took a huge hiatus in the middle of it. So that's interesting to me. But that went right, Dad. It's in the movie theaters today. I think it's in the movie theaters right now, but it's also on HBO Max.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat in my house and watched it on HBO Max. So
right.
Next spin. Oh,
slasher.
The much anticipated slasher. What's your favorite slasher movie?
I love the Friday the 13th franchise. I mean, especially number one. I feel like you could have called it not even Friday the 13th. You could have named it something else, like Trouble at Terror Lake or something, because it was so good. And then it just became this thing. But I have to give it to Halloween.
Whoa, yeah, you have to give it to Halloween.
Yeah, props. Okay,
to Halloween. John Carpenter's Halloween is literally the greatest slasher, maybe even the greatest horror movie ever made. Definitely the greatest introduction to any protagonist in the history of a movie. Okay? From beginning scene to end scene. That was a great movie. What did it do is it came out about a year, maybe 9 months before Friday the 13th. Okay? So, first of all, it gave us the pretense it's Halloween night. This person's coming back. Great story. The story was just phenomenal. Okay, that first episode, we're not going to talk about it, Halloween 3, 4, blah, blah,
H2O,
blah.
yeah.
We're talking about Halloween. Great story. The great way you never really saw his face. You never really saw anything. Like I always remember watching that movie. First time I saw that movie. I literally remember she looks out, she's getting ready to go somewhere, Jamie Lee Curtis, and then she looks out her window. She just happens to be looking out her window down at the clothesline, and the sheets are waving. All of a sudden, Michael Myers is standing there staring at her. Sheets are waving. There's no Michael Myers. Now, first time I saw this was not on a VCR, not on a DVD. It was on TV. And I remember looking over at my sister and being like, dude, was there a guy there? That's how well it worked. Okay? Then you go through the whole like succession. I mean, lay the groundwork for a whole genre. Okay, Jamie Lee Curtis was the good girl. She wasn't the girl fooling around. She was the one babysitting. Who survives? The good girl, not the one fooling around. It's the whole genre was great. And then the last line in the movie that she says is, "Was that the boogeyman?" And then Dr. Loomis says, "Yes, that's the boogeyman." Boom. And then you got Halloween 2, which almost is like a continuation of the exact same movie. And I think that was almost as close. If you want to get a sequel to a horror movie, that's probably the best sequel ever to a horror movie. And I think John Carpenter was the first person to put music. When you hear that Halloween Michael Myers music, he was the first person to put that like in movies. Oh my God. That movie, near and dear to me, arguably the greatest horror movie ever made.
Let's go back to the wheel.
Back to the wheel. Let's take off the slasher so we don't get it again. Starting to get close. We're almost at the end of them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Thank gosh. Vampire movies. What do you think of the best vampire movie you've ever seen?
Easy. Twilight. Twilight, hands down. Vampire. You're
Okay. At this point, you see my face saying, "You are definitely pulling my chain."
No, Nosferatu. Vampire baseball. Twilight.
You were kidding, right?
Yeah, it's a joke.
I hope the hell it is. I may have to unfriend you. What do you think your best vampire movie is?
I don't know. What's yours?
It's a tough one. Again, I'm going to have to say the best vampire. There's really three that I think are the greatest vampire movies ever made. But they're for totally different reasons. The best interpretation of a vampire movie that I've ever seen, like the best, like, wow, that's a great movie, and you don't see it enough, like they don't play it anywhere, it's called Near Dark. And it has the late, great Bill Paxton in it. He probably plays the coolest vampire I've ever seen in my life. And it's just really just kind of cool story about a guy who gets bit one night and he doesn't necessarily want to turn, and his family fights to get him back. It's a really, really good movie. Lance Hendrickson's in it. Jenny Wright's in it. It's a great, I highly recommend it if you've never seen it.
Yeah.
If you, the other two that I would give an honorable mention, probably the greatest story of a vampire story is Interview with a Vampire. Whether that was
the Johnny Depp movie?
No, the Brad Pitt and Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise movie. That it was an Anne Rice book. I thought that was our introduction to the vampire Lestat. That was a good movie for a story. And then if you want just the best 80s kind of, The Lost Boys.
Yeah, the Depeche Mode fan over here loves Interview with the Vampire.
Oh,
but also,
yeah. I'm sure she does.
Yeah. Fright Night also.
Fright Night was the original one was good. Second one, okay, but not as good as the first. The first one was really, really, really good. That's a genre that you kind of another one that was really good. I think it's called 28 Days a Night or 30 Days a Night. That takes place and I always thought that was a really great concept, because if I was a vampire, first place I would go is somewhere that had night for 6 months. I'd be at in Antarctica world. You know what I'm saying? You could just roam around and do whatever in Alaska for 6 months and then hibernate for 6 months. I always thought that was kind of a cool concept. But yeah.
Yeah, all right, back to the wheel.
Back to the wheel. Boom, 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 boom. Ooh, Aliens. An alien movie. Alien horror movie. What do you got, Brune?
I got the M. Night Shyamalan film Signs. Like, for real, I thought Signs was a really good movie.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting movie. It was definitely a different concept. I think M. Night Shyamalan, he either hits it out of the park, or it's kind of a dud. It's a totally good guy, and that was definitely a hit. For me, I'm going to have to go with The Thing.
The Thing.
John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely think that was definitely probably one of the best alien. I don't really know what he falls into the category of, but I'll call it an alien. That was a great movie. Had a great cast. Kurt Russell, great cast. Another one that I would definitely put in there would be Alien. The original Alien with Sigourney Weaver. That was, oh my God. I remember when that came out, saw it in the movie theater, and I was like, holy, that set me back. That was a good one.
Yeah. Before we go back to the wheel, I just want to give a quick honorable mention. Because what I liked about Signs, it was, first of all, it was like the Jaws concept, like
yes,
the less you see it, the scarier it is. Because spoiler alert for a movie that's been out for like 15 years. We don't see them till the end, and then you're thinking like, is this real? We're talking about, is there actually aliens? And so one of them actually shows up, and then you also see it in the funniest part of the movie is when Joaquin Phoenix's character is watching TV in the little coat closet, and then like they're like, oh, here's a Mexican broadcast of like them capturing it. He's like, move, kids, vámonos.
Move, children, vámonos.
It was horrifying. It was like. It was horrifying.
It's I think those movies really work. Like you said, like Jaws, Blair Witch was kind of that way. Signs. Another honorable mention that I was kind of like, oh shoot, I totally forgot about that one was The Fog. John Carpenter's The Fog.
Oh yeah.
Was kind of that way. The Thing was kind of that way. You didn't really see it. Alien. You didn't really see the monster. The alien, really a lot in Aliens you did, but in Alien you didn't, and I think that really works because then nothing is more freaked out and more scary than what your mind can produce. And I think that's when you get to have your own image of it. A lot of times, like I'll read a great book, like I've always had this problem, like with and you and Anthony love to give me the joke about it, and I guess I'll put another alien movie in. It. Okay, I know you guys
because of our conversations in the past.
So I've probably seen the It remake movie, I don't know, 20, 30, maybe 40 times. Okay. I think it's a great movie. I think it's a great casting. I think it's a good movie. But you know what? Pennywise still just isn't Pennywise from what I got from the book. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened with Salem's Lot. Speaking of vampires movies, the book Salem's Lot was so much scarier than the movie.
Okay.
So
hold on, I want to say real quick. Dark Skies, because we're running out of time. It's a really good movie. What I liked about this movie is I recommend you guys go see it. I'm not going to spoil it a lot because it's came out like 2014. But it's basically family in the suburbs is starting to get visited by aliens, and then they're trying to figure out if there's a way that they can basically fight back.
Very cool. So, I'm gonna delete Werewolf. I'm just gonna say honorable mention. If you ever want to see a great werewolf movie, American Werewolf in London or The Howling, two of the greatest werewolf movies. Spin this bad boy up. 2 left. Let's get through these. There we go. Nothing scarier than demons or Satan. Demonic movies. For me, it's simple. It's 2 movies. If you want to go straight out Satan craziness, The Exorcist. I mean, it's the gold standard for that genre. Linda Blair, 12 years old, probably played one of the greatest roles I've ever seen anybody ever play in a horror movie. That movie, Google it sometimes. That movie changed the world. People actually threw up and passed out during that movie. They got so scared. The other movie that, for me and in our family anyway, for me and my son, is like a true diehard. Every one of them we've loved. The Conjuring. Every Conjuring movie, especially the first two, were phenomenal. About demonic. What do you got, Brune?
Yeah, Conjuring 2 also another big underrated movie, old time movie. Rosemary's Baby.
Oh yeah.
A very underrated movie. I love that. And also before it got too crazy and weird, like I think it was the one where it was it had like the Latinos in it, and like South LA or East LA was Paranormal Activity. It actually had a plot. I enjoyed it. It was like started off with, I would say, it started with, like having a camera in the back, in the corner, because at that time, like people were buying, home video cameras, and then, well, how do they, adapt from it? Well, people are now buying home security systems. So, like, is there anything picking up on the home security system? But it did have a plot where, like, the original two girls were like, their grandma was in a cult for Satan, and that, like, if any of the offspring had like males, that like it would be like not sacrificed, but it'd be given to Satan. But yeah,
I never saw that, to be honest with you. I should probably go back and watch. I know it was extremely popular. Fun fact about Rosemary's Baby. You know where that was filmed?
no.
It's filmed at a building, apartment building in New York City called the Dakota. It's very famous. Of many celebrities, including Mia Farrow, lived there. But it's actually where John Lennon died. It's where she was shot and killed. It was in the Dakota when he lived in Dakota. But yeah, very famous. Last genre. We'll just spin the wheel. We know what it is. Dun dun dun. Ghosts. What is your favorite movie to do with ghosts?
I'm blanking right now, but
Oh
I don't know
boy.
if it's really ghosts, because it is somewhat sci-fi related, but isn't ghost kind of technically in the realm of sci-fi, like a
Kind of.
Poltergeist?
Sure.
But Insidious, the first Insidious movie, was very good till it got to 3. But like Insidious 1 and 2, such a good movie. Again, like another story. Yeah, another original story. But yeah, Elite, what do you have? Well, I
So for me, it's actually, I have 3. One of them you just literally said was, for me, is definitely one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. Was Poltergeist, the original Poltergeist, Steven Spielberg's Poltergeist. I thought was a great movie. Second one that I saw that I thought was great was what was that? What was the name of the movie with Bruce Willis? I See Dead People.
The Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense. Great movie. Had you guessing the whole time. And then the third one would be Nicole Kidman did this movie. And it was called The Others.
Yes. The Depeche Mode fan is also huge fan of that movie.
Okay, and that movie, again, very much like The Sixth Sense, it was the last couple minutes of the movie that got you. And I thought, wow, that's probably my 3 favorite ghost movies. Would you come up with anything?
No, it's not really coming up with things. I'm just gonna leave it at Insidious because it's already.
Insidious is a good movie, though. I think that's pretty much us this week. hopefully next week we have Anthony. I would love to hear from our listeners some topics they want. I would love to know what their favorite movies are. I'm going to try to come up with a list of, I think, 5 to 10 movies that everybody should watch during the month of October for a little bit of spookiness. Really, really want to thank all of our followers. It's been an honor. We're about ready to hit that magic number of 50, which is amazing since we started this little project out with just 2. So it's pretty amazing. We're growing every week. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. And before we go, I want to give a quick shout out. I think during this month of October, if you guys are looking for a Halloween movie to watch, a spooky movie, Dark Skies, if it's available anywhere. Also, Rosemary's Baby. Elite, do you have anything?
I would definitely say Near Dark. If you can find Near Dark, it's probably one of the greatest vampire movies you'll ever see. And I really have to kind of strongly recommend A Girl Who Walks Alone. If you are into foreign movies, that movie is phenomenal.
Yes. So, Dark Skies is available on Netflix if you guys want to go check it out. But next week we'll be better prepared with if our movie recommendations and where to watch them. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you guys in the next one.